Dear Queenagers, welcome to this solstice weekend Queenager newsletter. And with its promise of full summer sun loungers and time for some immersive reading, it seemed like a good time to bring you my biannual roundup of the books I've been loving. And it's particularly apt as in the last week I went to several very fun and glitzy book parties, including the Women's Prize for Fiction and Non-Fiction. And I was so delighted that The Correspondent by Virginia Evans won. It's really a wonderful read, one of those books that slowly sucks you in and delivers a proper gut wrench in the last third. I've done a whole picture of all the books I'm recommending. It's not there because I loved it so much. I recommended it to a friend, so it's not in the picture. But lots of the other ones are, if you want a quick reminder. What I particularly loved about The Correspondent is that sense that it's never too late to fix things. And as Queenagers, we're always banging on here at noon about how it's never too late and we're never too old to become the women we always wanted to be. Well, that really is the message of The Correspondent. And I was also thrilled at the Women's Prize that Lise Doucette, a truly brilliant hack, won the non-fiction prize for her brilliant book about Afghanistan. I haven't got that yet, but it's definitely on my list. So last week, it wasn't just the Women's Fiction Prize I went to. I also was at the Wazing Wellbeing Literary Festival, where I had the great honour to interview Prue Leith in front of a packed tent of about 500 people about her new book, which is called Being Old and Learning to Love It. She, like her tome, was full of fun, vim and jolly anecdotes, explaining how she met her new chap, John, at 70, and how they went skiing for the first time in their 80s. Apparently their kids paid for them to be put in a kind of pram and whooshed down the slopes, was how she described it. But she seems to love zooming around her home on a quad bike, and she explained that she'd only stopped being on Bake Off so that she can get her summers back. At 86, she really is pretty amazing. Her book is pure joy. I also ran a noon circle in the Sacred Glade at Wazing for around 35 wonderful Queenagers. If you like the sound of Wazing, do come. We've got a retreat there in September. You can find all about it on the website. Our whole point about the noon circle there was we were talking about joy. And one of the ladies, who was 83, said that the best thing she'd done recently was being taken to a queer rave by her grandchildren in Camden Town. Sorry, she explained that she'd never been clubbing and wanted to try it, and so her grandchildren took her. What I love most about the Noon Circle is that you just never know what will be said, and you never always fail to amaze and inspire me. You really incredible ladies. Sorry, my final book interview was with Justin Langdon. This is at Wazing, a Cambridge academic who's written a book called Natural Connection about how the experience of the Global South can help us feel more optimistic about the challenges posed by climate change. She writes about, for example, the feat of imagination it took to be a slave, seized and transported from, say, her native Ghana to a sugar plantation, and being part of a system which basically viewed her ancestors as chattels, less than human. But how, despite that, somehow those slaves held the hope that one day they would be free and that the world would see them as equals, and that the macroeconomic system which so oppressed them could change. That kind of radical hope is, she argues, what we all need to imagine now. We all need to have a feat of imagination which could make us see that there could be a world government which could replace our current dependency on growth and exploiting the world's resources so unsustainably, and that in the same way that the slaves envisaged a different kind of future, something more equitable, we could also do that around climate change now. I found Jocelyn deeply inspiring, and I really love the examples and scholarship of her book, which takes in everything from slavery to art and AI. She's really worth a read. Robert Macfarlane describes the book as urgent, profound and compassionate. I agree. It's definitely worth the place on your summer reading list this summer. If it's the one thing you read, I would really recommend that. I've been reading quite widely recently about the climate and how we shift to live in a different way. It's been a theme that I've been really reading widely about and coming back to over the last few months. And so Joycelyn is definitely top of this list. But apart from that, if you haven't read it, do start by reading Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer. She's an academic who is also a Native American, and she describes how, if we let it, nature can heal itself even after terrible toxicity and abuse of the land. And if you need a dose of optimism about the way forward, Braiding Sweetgrass is definitely it. A great companion volume to that is Active Hope by Joanna Macy, who's a veteran ecologist who explains again how we can evade despair and channel our action on the climate. She really is a welcome pick-me-up. Less cheerful, but interesting because it explains how we've all become part of an internet matrix which is controlling our minds to greater or lesser extents, is a book called Against the Machine, The Unmaking of Humanity by Paul Kingsnorth. I don't agree with his conclusion, which is that we all need to become Catholics and kind of live off grid, but his account of the technological cultural matrix, which now is in kind of infecting all of us and how it's choking our very humanity, is really mega food for thought. It has changed the way I think in quite a profound way. And I haven't just been reading about climate change, I promise. Another strong theme has been feminism. I suppose that's not really a surprise. And at the Women's Prize party last week, I bumped into an old friend, the feminist Natasha Walter. And I've been really enjoying reading her new book, which is called Feminism for a World on Fire. I like Natasha because she's a doer as well as a pontificator. She founded a thing called Women for Refugee Women, which help female refugees who've been interned or abused. And this book links the setbacks of feminism and the current backlash, the overturning of abortion rights in the States, the rise in misogyny, the manosphere, all that kind of thing, to the broader climate struggle, which I think is really interesting. The other two books of grim, if essential, feminist reading, I'm afraid, are Giselle Pellicot's extraordinary memoir, Shame Has to Change Sides, A Hymn to Life, and Nobody's Girl by the late Virginia Roberts Giuffre. The Pellicot is harrowing as it depicts her husband's hideous crimes, but it's also full of grace, optimism, and a huge love of life. I kind of felt if she could live it, I should read it, and I suppose so should you. And also the Giselle Pellicot is very Queenager in terms of her resurrection. She has a wonderful new relationship. She's fixed her relationship with her children and is also currently very happy. Nobody's Girl, I'm afraid I had to read in bite-sized chunks because Virginia's life at the hands of Epstein and his chums is just so dark. But in all the fuss about the famous men, Mandelson, Bill Gates, etc., it's important to remember that the girl's at the heart of this modern version of Bluebeard's Castle. Read it and weep and be angry. But again, it's one of those things that I feel we should kind of read. Anyway, there's here now for some light relief. It's not all non-fiction. My favourite book of the last few months is a new novel called Ecstatic by Emily Wolfe, which depicts a kind of near future style London under a kind of COVID, where there's a curfew, and the story is about a group of dancers and misfits who defy the police state to dance, love, and protest. I really love this book. It's beautifully written and it's a great read, I think, by a really talented writer. A romance about falling in love with ourselves and our own creativity, but also what keeps us human and connected when things around us are really going dark. Who knows, that may be something we're all going to face. So it feels kind of prophetic to me too. And also brilliant is a book called All That Man Is by David Shajley, who won the Booker Prize for his book Flesh. This is his earlier novel, which charts 10 men and the key moments in their lives. It's a riveting insight into the male mind and also rather gripping. Best for your sun lounger is definitely The Calamity Club by Catherine Stockett, who wrote The Help and who came to our noon book club. The Calamity Club is a romp of a read through the Mississippi Delta during the Great Depression, a page-turner that kept me reading into the small hours. I promise you'll love it. And in a similar vein, I enjoyably whizzed through Yesteryear by Caro Claire Burke, the trendy book of the moment, which is about a trad wife getting her comeuppance. It's a good blend of serious and fun, and quite light. in comparison to some of the other things on here. And having read Every Word There Is by Elizabeth Strout, if you haven't read Olive Kittredge and the other books yet, just buy them all. You're really in for a treat. I love those. And having finished those, my dad recommended a book called Happy All the Time by a writer I hadn't heard of called Laurie Colwyn, who has a bit of a touch of the Elizabeth Strout about her. It's a gentle and touching coming-of-age novel about two couples. It's charming, and again would be a good addition to your summer reading. And the best novel I read this year? Well, it was a classic, If Beale Street Could Talk by James Baldwin. Sultry, tense, incredibly modern given it was written in the 1930s about a gay black jazz musician. Absolutely incredible writing. If you haven't read it, I really recommend it. Memoir is one of my favourite genres at the moment. If you've been bereaved, then my sister Jess Mills's book, We Are Each Other, about the death of her mum, my stepmum, Tessa Jow, from brain cancer as Jess became a mother herself, is lyrical, heartfelt and comforting for those confronting an impossible loss. I also loved a book called Wild Things by Barbara Wansborough, very well reviewed in the FT, who chronicles her grief for a most beloved sister through a series of walks in nature in Los Angeles. It's so beautiful, and also a ragbag of wonderful quotes and poems and kind of quotes from other books. I love these lines she quotes from Naomi Shihab Nye, a poet I hadn't heard of, which she loves so much she had tattooed on her wrist. It says, people do not pass away, they die, and then they stay. And while we're on memoirs about grief, not quite sure why I've been reading so many, I absolutely loved Siri Hustvedt's Ghost Stories, which is all about her long marriage to the novelist Paul Auster. It's like a hymn to a happy long-term coupledom. Not something that's often written about, but really moving. Of course, I've also been reading loads on midlife, longevity and ageing, as you would expect. I've actually really been enjoying Denise Taylor's new book, which is called Thrive Span, Walking Gently into What Matters Now, which describes midlife and beyond in terms of leaning into purpose, nature, gentleness, and what truly makes us happy. I write about this in my book. There's an Indian phrase called Vanasprasna, which is about going into the forest at this time. And Denise seems to be very much kind of within that tradition. And I'm totally with her in terms of this period being about redefining our sense of success and what it means to us now. She's doing an event with us on July the 16th, so do tune in. And at the other end of the midlife spectrum, Porna Bell's book, which is called She Wanted More, describes coming into that sense of really prioritizing ourselves through her highly entertaining account of a destructive relationship and how she's just no longer settling for what she's been given. That comes up a lot in the Noon Circles. I think it's a really good one. Also essential reading for those interested in the 100-year life is Michael Clinton's new book, Longevity Nation, which is a journalistic romp through all the best thinking and projects going on in work, health, relationships, what governments are doing, and really challenges our own internal ageism. If you're interested, check out the chat that I did with him on LinkedIn last week. I'm also interviewing him for The Telegraph this week, so there's lots of that around. And I went to his book launch yesterday and met my hero, Professor Linda Grattan, author of The 100-Year Life, the book that really inspired Noon. What a thrill. On my bedside table, which I'm looking forward to reading, haven't got quite through yet, are Brave and Bold, 100 Years of the Hampstead Ladies' Pond by Nell Frizzle. I know I'm a cliche, but I'm really looking forward to reading this. And Catherine Mayer's riveting new book about royal women from Elizabeth I to Kate and Meghan Markle. And it's all about how it's impossible to live in the royal bubble and how those women kind of come to some kind of accommodation with it. I've been hearing about it a lot while she's been writing it, so I'm really looking forward to that. And she's also going to come on Noon and discuss it. I hope that all of these give you some food for thought over the summer. This has certainly enriched my thinking over the last few months, and I'm really proud that so many of them I've managed to wrangle into coming to talk to us directly at Noon, so I hope you'll join us for some of those too. All the best, have a lovely weekend, And if you're listening to this or listening to the video and you're a member of Noon, do go and have a look at the actual newsletter, because there are a whole load of amazing special offers, including 50% off at the longevity show, and some other really good things for Noon members. And we, just to remind you, on the 5th of July, coming up quickly, we've got a 1-day kind of mini retreat near Warwick. Wonderful Queenager called Rebecca, who lets us use her farm, and we're going to be doing a walk, a swim and a circle there on the 5th of July. It's only 25 quid, so we're trying to keep that particularly cheap, because I know that it's hard yards for lots of people at the moment. And also, we've got our Entrepreneurs Club launch, again free. If you're a lady, Queenager, setting up a business, that might be useful to you. And also, because I've been talking about Wazing, just to remind you, we have a Wazing retreat, a 1-day signature retreat in September. Restorative movement, an incredible walk, swimming in the lake, sauna, delicious lunch, and a circle. It's always such a special day. So if you're fancying dipping your toe in what we now call the Nooniverse, do come and join us then. Lovely to talk to you all as always. Thank you so much for spending some time with me. And I was particularly thrilled that Andy Burnham, my old friend and first boss, won in Makerfield last week, and is maybe set to be the new leader of the Labour Party. Gosh, we'll see what happens. But if you'd like to read my column about that, it's on Substack and also on Noon. He's a great bloke. Anyway, that's enough. That's enough of me for today. Have a lovely day, and see you all soon at a Noon event, I hope. Bye.